Hey gamers, it's me, Julia Flowergothic. What you're about to watch is a video I originally uploaded in December of 2021. My breakdown and criticism of Damien Chazelle's Academy Award-winning movie musical, La La Land. What happened to the original? Well, it got copy struck and I had to make some edits to the footage to work around what got claimed. The original project has since long been lost, so I'm afraid this is the best I can do. Why are you doing this? Well, I made the video during a time of significant change in my life, right as I was about to graduate university, and now that I'm once again in a transitional stage, hell, in the exact same room I filmed my old videos in, just recarpeted and refurnished, it feels right to re-release it now. And I want the video to survive at least some capacity because it has a lot of personal meaning to me. I mean, aside from the fact that it was my bachelor's thesis by technicality. Just keep in mind, I made this video almost 5 years ago. It's definitely not my best work. I've improved a lot as a creator since then. But I hope you'll be able to see why I wanted this to be saved, at least to an extent. So just, I guess that's all I have to say. So enjoy, watch the video, like it or whatever. Enjoy. Years ago to this day, Damien Chazelle's La La Land was released to rave reviews. But the story of the movie starts long before that. You see, Chazelle loved musicals for almost his whole life. He longed to write his own movie musical and wrote the original La La Land script in 2010 with composer friend Justin Hurwitz. They had trouble selling it. Why? It was an original movie musical written by two nobodies, which is the opposite of what studios want. Such a movie is a huge financial risk for studios, and they are very hesitant to finance projects they aren't sure will succeed. One studio was willing to finance the film, but with a catch. Major changes had to be made. They had to simplify the opening number, make the male lead a rock musician, and give the film a happy ending. Chazelle, disheartened by this rejection, gave up on selling La La Land and moved on to other projects. So what changed? Chazelle wrote and directed Whiplash, which was a critical and financial success. Now seeing that Chazelle was profitable, Summit Entertainment threw money at him to do whatever he wanted, and thus the La La Land we know and love was born. I first watched La La Land when it was in theaters. I was intrigued by it, as the trailers showed very little of the plot, and at 16, I thought it was good. But La La Land is deeply flawed and quite problematic. The problems are hidden under the aesthetics of the film, which I admit are pretty, but we'll get to that later in this video. From the characters, to the plot, to the Aesop, here are 6 reasons why La La Land is...
Hey, Flower, aren't you gonna sing?
It's a movie musical.
I'm not gonna sing! Mia is definitely the protagonist of the movie, so I'll start with her. Some of y'all might say that I'm wrong and that she and Sebastian are the main characters, but I disagree.
She gets most of the screen time in the beginning, to the point where I thought it'd only show her perspective until 3 songs or almost 18 minutes into the movie, when we finally cut to some Sebastian scenes. And even afterwards, it's Mia who rediscovers Sebastian at a spring party. It's Mia we see working before Sebastian breaks into the studio lot. And it's Mia we see at the beginning of the epilogue. So considering that Mia is the focus for the first 14% of the movie, she should immediately charm us with her character, right?
No! She's pretty, she desires to be an actress, and what else is there?
Throughout the film, I kept trying to find other traits to pin onto Mia, but I'm sorry, I can't think of any. There's nothing to unpack about Mia because there's nothing to her character. She's a generic female protagonist who's played by one of the most recognized actresses in the United States, and that's supposed to make us care about her?
To me, she's the character that's supposed to be relatable to everyone, but consequently has no qualities of her own. As a result, Mia comes off as boring. She reminds me of every white girl at my middle school who played 2048 and wore short shorts with Martha's Vineyard tees in the summer. Totally ununique.
There's a scene where she tells Sebastian what inspired her to be an actress while the two are walking in a backlot. It's nice and all, but there's very little of that story being shown rather than told. That is not a good thing to do in the film world, as film is an audiovisual medium. You can't just say, Sally Smith is a jaded teenager who doesn't trust anyone. You need to show me through her wardrobe, actions, and dialogue that she's jaded and doesn't trust anyone. Put her in a leather jacket or something. Give her a violent streak. Oh, and you better pay attention to that monologue, as its seemingly minuscule details are brought up later.
Sebastian, how'd you get into all this? Mia, into? My aunt was an actress. She was in this traveling theater company, and there was this little library across the street from my house when I was growing up. This was Boulder City, Nevada. Every house looked exactly the same. I was 10 and already I needed to get out. And one day, my aunt flew into town and she showed me the library's old movie section. We spent a whole day watching one after the other, bringing up Baby, Notorious, Casablanca, a beat. Then, I never knew the world was so big. Next two lines are irrelevant. Mia, I started putting on plays in my garage. I'd write the scripts and print up programs. And she'd give me props to use from wherever she'd just been. New York, London, Paris, and then she'd jet off again and I wouldn't hear from her for another year. Sebastian, who would you invite to watch? Your parents? Mia, God no, I didn't invite anyone. That would have been terrifying. Cut to the entrance to a giant soundstage. Mia, honestly, I wish I loved something else. I've tried so hard to want other things. She and Sebastian stop, peer inside the stage. Mia, I left school after 2 years to come here. My fourth manager just dropped me, and my last audition was for a teen soap pitched as Dangerous Minds meets the OC. A beat, then deadpan. Should have been a lawyer. They resume walking. So, this was about a page, and in screenplays, the general rule is that one page equals 1 minute of screen time. So, what the actual fuck? Let's compare this to another heroine from a movie musical, Sandy from Grease.
Sandy is a super innocent girl who happened to hit it off with rebel greaser Danny Zuko. Her naivete and innocence are shown at full blast without us having to hear her goddamn life story. She, wearing pastels, immediately befriends fellow square Patty Simcox, chokes when she smokes for the first time at a slumber party, and gets nauseous when one of the pink ladies pierces her ears.
It just works.
Speaking of descriptions though, here's the script's description of Mia. Mia, 27, Nevada raised, 6 years of no in LA have toughened her, but she's still a dreamer. She seems to be on the phone, speaking into her car system, fast, fiery, full of energy. I take immediate objection to that. Case in point, the someone in the crowd scene.
After her failed audition, Mia is defeated and about to cry while walking past other women dressed exactly like her, thus showing how tough she is. And for someone described as fiery and full of energy, she seems to be the exact opposite during a networking party, shying away from these highbrow people. The film justifies this by stating in the screenplay, and I quote, that there's a fat-old producer dancing with a 20-something, a trio of agents glad-handing each other in rhythm by the bar. Yep, every cliche is here. Yes, this is in the actual screenplay.
I hate to say it, but this is how men tend to write women in mediocre films. They're either feisty and full of energy, shrinking violets, or just there. I'll prove it to you. Erica, also 19, is Mark's state. She has a girl next door face that makes her easy to fall for. At this point in the conversation, she already knows that she'd rather not be there and her politeness is about to be tested. Pull back to reveal Liv, 18, resilient, brave, her don't fuck with me factor, scoring a perfect 100. A simple, classic wedding dress hangs on a closet door in this sun-drenched bridal suite. Sitting at the makeup table, surrounded by her bridesmaids, is the beautiful bride, Tracy Turner, 20s. She's busy doing her makeup. Meryl, wearing a stylish robe, sits at the kitchen table, sipping coffee. On the table in front of her lies a parcel. Truman enters and glances at the gift. I could go on, but I know nobody wants me to. As a result, I don't care for Mia. It's not that I don't like her, I just don't have a reason to care about her. She isn't special. She's neither good nor bad, just simply a shell. I can't say the same for...
Why won't you sing, Flower?
Shut up! I don't understand why anyone would root for Sebastian. I'm not kidding. When I first watched this film for the sake of this video, I went on and on and on in my friend's Discord server about how he was such a piece of shit.
His first scene sets up exactly what kind of person he is. Irresponsible.
Because you're living like a hermit. You're driving without insurance.
Does it matter?
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
You need to get
well, then
serious.
I know a guy.
Unhealthily obsessive.
Don't sit on that. Hoagie Carmichael sat
Oh
on
my
that.
god. Oh, Sebastian, it's like a girl broke up with you and you're stalking her.
Lazy.
Get serious.
Get serious? Laura, I had a very serious plan for my future.
Clingy about his dream that he hasn't bothered to fulfill.
When are you gonna unpack these boxes?
When I unpacked them in my own club.
He's also a white jazz purist who is frequently fired for refusing to play things that aren't jazz.
I want you to know you're looking at a new man. Man that's happy to be here.
Excellent.
Very easy to work with. Man.
And you're going to play the set list.
Happy to. Even though I don't think anyone cares what I play, but yeah.
Well, if by anyone you mean anyone other than me, that would be correct. I care, and I don't want to hear the free jazz.
Right. Okay. Although I thought in this town it worked on a sort of one for you, one for me type system. How about two for you, one for me? How about...
Okay, from one creative to another, don't do that! Sometimes you have to wallow through shit to get to the surface. I've written things I don't like before, but I'm building a resume for when I actually get a creative job. I'll talk more about the negative implications of Sebastian's white savior attitude on jazz later. But for now, back to his toxic behavior.
Sebastian at least admits he is an asshole the second he sees Mia, immediately before telling her he's a serious musician. I fucking hate this cunt!
Okay, I was an asshole. I can admit that.
Okay.
But requesting Iran from a serious musician is...
Sebastian also learns very little throughout this movie. While we see Mia at least take some degree of charge and write a one-woman play, we don't see what Sebastian does to open his jazz club aside from that one time he was in a jazz fusion band, which we'll cover more in depth later.
Aside from his toxicity, we don't learn much about Sebastian. How does the script describe him?
Sebastian, 32, LA native. He's listening to the radio. He's playing a track on his music system, a tape of Thelonious Monk's Japanese folk song. but he keeps stopping it over and over and over, always rewinding to the same exact spot. I'm going to say something controversial yet brave. Sebastian can be read as Damien Chazelle's jazz-playing alter ego.
In high school, Chazelle wanted to be a jazz musician when he grew up, but he didn't have a good musical aptitude. So what if, as a coping mechanism, Chazelle wrote Sebastian as an alternate universe version of himself who was good at jazz and an amazing musician, and he could totally achieve his jazz club dreams. Chazelle, too, loves jazz and fell deeply in love with an actress. Chazelle, too, had to start with safer projects until Summit Entertainment threw money at him to do what he wanted. Chazelle, too, glamorizes nostalgia, even announcing that he would be writing and directing a film that takes place in 1920s Hollywood. You know, around the time jazz was the hot new trend.
I'm not saying that films that differentiate from the norm are a bad thing. As y'all know, my all-time favorite movie is Heathers, which was directed by a Hollywood first-timer and written by a dude who is only known for that film. And it's a darkly comedic take of the teen films of the time, like The Breakfast Club. JD is not the writer's author avatar. JD is an asshole like Sebastian, but you aren't supposed to root for him. And I know it might seem weird for me to compare Sebastian to someone who is essentially a violent misanthrope, but there are parallels to their behavior with their love interests. This leads us to... The movie really wants you to believe that Mia and Sebastian are the perfect pair, made for only each other. But this is far from the truth. This is best exemplified with their first duet, A Lovely Night.
The song proper is about how the two have no chemistry and don't belong together. I'm not kidding.
And we've got no shot. You're not the type for me.
Real, you're right. I'd never fall for you at all.
This is supposed to contrast with the chemistry Mia and Sebastian are supposed to have. But to me, it looks like two actors out of their element and super uncomfortable with it. I mean, neither Emma Stone nor Ryan Gosling are professionally trained singers. Gosling might be in a band, but he didn't get vocal training as a child. Stone might have sang in a production of Cabaret, but stage singing and movie singing are different skill sets that require different prerequisites. Just because they've done it before does not mean that they are good at it! The tap dancing sequence seals the deal on how uncomfortable Sebastian and Mia look. They are clearly inexperienced with tap dancing and are borderline half-assing it. They don't even put any emotion into their dancing.
Now, I can say this as I did tap dancing in elementary school. The thing about tap is that it's supposed to be energetic when used in theaters or movies. It's supposed to be wild and carefree. This is not, and it just further shows how incompatible they are. By the way, some of the more romantic things Sebastian does in the movie come off as stalkerish and creepy.
Now, remember how I said that there are parallels between Sebastian and JD's relationships with women? Let me explain further. In one scene, Sebastian sneaks onto the Warner Bros. Lot just to see Mia at work after she gave him no real method of contact. If someone I met at a party came to my workplace, even if we had chemistry, I'd be creeped out! This is similar to a scene in Heathers, where JD breaks into Veronica's room without her telling him her address. You're not supposed to see this as romantic, but as a man crossing boundaries with someone he was obsessed with. Sebastian, like JD, suddenly grew super attached to someone they had little screen time with and developed a relationship with them. But while JD is shown to be mentally unstable, we're supposed to romanticize what Sebastian did? I refuse to! What doesn't help my concerns is that the relationship isn't healthy. Some examples. Mia tells Sebastian she doesn't like jazz. Instead of accepting her different music tastes, Sebastian throws a hissy fit and mansplains jazz to her.
I know. That's the okay. So I think that's part of the problem is that you can't hear it. You know, you have to see it. You have to see what's at stake. I mean, look at these fellas.
Mia and Sebastian are shown to believe that they would be happy together forever. This is a toxic way to perceive your relationships called Prince Charming disease.
What is Prince Charming disease? It's the perception that your ideal relationship will be passionate, steamy, and full of butterflies forever. This is an unrealistic expectation that can cost you genuine relationships. It's more common than you think. I'll let the coquette, one of the few good millennials, explain it further.
Snow White, Sleeping Beauty, and Cinderella are delicious fun when you're a little girl, but fairy tales are lies we tell to children. The myth of Prince Charming has no business sneaking past Santa Claus and the Tooth Fairy and worming its way into your romantic expectations. Do you still write letters to the North Pole? Didn't think so, and yet you're still waiting to be swept off your feet. You are happy in a stable, healthy relationship built on mutual love and respect with a man whom you consider your intellectual and emotional equal. Girl, you and I should be high-fiving like drunken frat boys at a strip club. Instead, you're writing me about the best guy you've ever dated like he's the winter of your discontent. If you weren't emotionally, intellectually, or physically satisfied, that would be another story, just not this one. You're happy, and nothing is broken except your childlike set of unrealistic romantic expectations, which would be quaint if they weren't so damaging to adult relationships like yours.
Back to the toxicity. Sebastian refuses to get a job to focus on opening the jazz club of his dreams. This is a romanticization of the starving artist. You need to eat. Mia moves in with Sebastian after only dating for a couple months, even though she's the one with stable housing. She also quits her job to be a starving artist like Sebastian. Sebastian's refusal to do much of anything but plan for his club ends up biting him in the ass, and after a miscommunication with Mia, he ends up getting a job as part of a band that plays quote-unquote impure jazz, and his bitterness over it ends up costing him a romantic evening with Mia and more.
Ultimately, it is this instability that tears them apart, as well as their refusal to change for the other person. Relationships, or at least healthy relationships, are built out of emotional stability, compassion, affection, and learning from conflicts. Now, let me be clear. I in no way think Sebastian and Mia's relationship is abusive. Unstable, unhealthy relationships do not have to be abusive. To me, again, it seems that they're seeing each other as their ideal partner, which makes their flaws more glaring when expressed. And I should know, I've been in an abusive relationship before. This sudden shift in living conditions, believing that they're gonna be happy together forever, it's a toxic mindset that has ruined lives before. It almost ruined mine.
There is only one scene that shows even the slightest of chemistry between Mia and Sebastian. The planetarium scene. For those of you who haven't watched the film, I'll give you a quick rundown of it. Sebastian and Mia meet up for a screening of Rebel Without a Cause. Now, the plot of the film isn't relevant to the context of the scene, though it should be noted that it's a golden age of Hollywood film and one of Chazelle's favorites. But one of the more famous scenes takes place at the Griffith Observatory of Los Angeles. Sebastian and Mia hold hands, actually like a new couple, and almost kiss. Then the film reel gets fucked. The movie, however, inspires Mia to go with Sebastian to the observatory, where they dance along the stars and share their first kiss. It's a beautiful scene, and you can see the chemistry Sebastian and Mia have through the wonderfully paced visual storytelling. It feels as though you are Mia and Sebastian, falling deeply and madly in love and floating across the sky with nothing but themselves for company. The dancing is also in sync when compared to the fucking half-assed tap dancing from earlier! They look like an actual couple without saying a single word to each other. And it's just a beautiful scene. But it's undermined by the following montage, which doesn't do much in terms of visual storytelling. The two visit parts of Los Angeles and have good old happy fun times. And sure, I guess it shows that they're supposed to be a functioning couple, but the vast majority of what we see is pre-relationship and post-honeymoon phases of their time together.
Sebastian and Mia are the couple who fell in love after a chance meeting at the farmer's market and think they're going to be happy together forever, but bitterly break up after a year due to the fact that they are actually incompatible. We see this later in the film, as the reality of their flawed relationship crawls out of its shell.
After touring for a while with the jazz fusion band he hates, Sebastian surprises Mia with what is supposed to be a romantic dinner, but is actually a brutal reminder of how they rushed into things and are toxic for one another. Mia can't travel the country with Sebastian because she has to rehearse for her one-woman play. Which, by the way, is a terrible idea for multiple reasons, but I'm not here to nitpick over Mia's fucking plan. And Sebastian is going to be away a lot in order to perform for the band he joined due to a miscommunication. Mia then becomes a hypocrite by saying,
"Of course, I wanted you to have a steady job so that you could take care of yourself and your life and you could start your club."
which, little bitch, you quit your job at the coffee shop in order to work on your one-woman show! You know what? Fuck it! I'm going to dissect every single reason why Mia's idea for the play is stupid! 1. Nobody knows who the fuck Mia is outside of her friends and family. Nobody cares about a one-woman play written by some nobody. Sure, she's taking initiative, I'll give her that, but indie films and local theater exist! You can't catch the big fish without the proper bait! 2. It seems that Mia has only advertised her play by randomly emailing people. I'm sure a lot of them are industry peepers and jeepers. However, email is not an effective marketing tool. Many, myself included, have filters to weed out ads like that. Social media exists. Why not use that instead? 3. Mia is entering this thinking that she, despite her reservations, is going to defy the odds and play for a full house. Again, no one knows about her. I have no idea why the theater was chill enough to let her rent out something she wasn't sure she'd be able to profit off of. I'm sorry. I got a bit carried away there. Back to the scene. I feel like this scene shows how inherently toxic Mia and Sebastian are to one another. Mia quit her job for something she didn't know would be a success and kinda expected Sebastian to be the breadwinner of the household, which he was initially unwilling to do because he had that jazz club we never see him actually put any work into. Sure, I guess you can chalk it up to the honeymoon phase, but we don't even get to see much of that. We're just expected to believe that they had one over the summer and it was cool and epic and we wish you were able to see it, but we needed to add in more nostalgia to impress the critics. Oh, speaking of...
Now, I know that nostalgia is one of the film's features. Hell, it was apparent from the teaser trailers. I have no issue with nostalgia. This past September, I defended a film from 1989, and I helped edit an entire saga of iCarly videos in recent months. But La La Land over-relies on nostalgia. It's to the point where one can't necessarily see what the movie is about. Instead, having to wait for the similar beats of a romantic comedy drama. And y'all, the pacing of the movie is shit.
After my initial watch for this video, I theorized to my friends that the visual appeal of the movie is why so many people overlook its flaws. It has enough bright colors and nostalgic scenes in LA to make people not think too hard about what's going on. And you know what? They agreed with me! The movie is like the television screen programs in Fahrenheit 451. Pretty, entertaining, but lacking in the most important thing: substance.
On one wall, a woman smiled and drank orange juice simultaneously. How does she do both at once? Thought Montag. Insanely. In the other walls, an X-ray of the same woman revealed the contracting journey of the refreshing beverage on its way to her delighted stomach. Abruptly, the room took off on a rocket flight into the clouds. It plunged into a lime green sea where blue fish ate red and yellow fish. A minute later, 3 white cartoon clowns chopped off each other's limbs to the accompaniment of immense incoming tides of laughter. 2 minutes more, and the room whipped out of town to the jet cars wildly circling an arena, bashing and backing up and bashing each other again. Montag saw a number of bodies fly in the air.
And yes, there are severe technical flaws with the movie that the nostalgia figure covers up as well. For example, the pacing is garbage. It takes almost 30 minutes for our protagonists to have a real conversation with each other, and another 28 minutes before they kiss. Their relationship is perfect for less than 10 minutes, before Sebastian goes down the deep end.
But you don't really pay attention to that, as the film is beautiful enough, visually, for you to overlook it. The first time I saw La La Land at 16, I remember not paying much attention to its flaws, which is unusual given my movie watching habits. Then again, it was shortly after I had a surgical procedure that left me in a lot of pain, so I probably had bigger problems. But aesthetics should be the cherry on top of a movie, not the main driving force.
Monsters, Inc. had a jazz aesthetic, but it doesn't swamp the movie. Take out the jazz and not much changes. Napoleon Dynamite had a 2000s small town aesthetic, but not much would change if it took place in the 90s or 2010s. La La Land would collapse if you take out the jazz, the LA aesthetic, or the pretty colors. And below the aesthetic? La La Land is boring. It's about a boring couple who have no chemistry and want to be famous. That's it. There's nothing else to it.
Before you complain in the comments, I don't think a story needs to be exciting to have value.
Take Anne Rice's writing, for example. Her vampire chronicles are long and heavily detailed, focusing more on the human aspect of vampirism than the actions happening around the characters. The beauty in Rice's work comes from its themes on loneliness and the cost of immortality. Nothing much physically happens, but everything emotionally happens, and it's so good. It's a slow burner, but it's so good. La La Land, however, has no emotional stakes. It doesn't give you enough time or details to invest in the characters. It expects you to relate to them because, hey, everyone wanted to be a star at some point, right?
When I was a kid, I wanted to be an inventor, then a writer, then an artist. Now I have no idea what I want to be. I've done production work, editing, writing, but YouTube has been my only consistent hobby for the past decade, and we all know how profitable that is.
The dreamy Hollywood/old cinema aesthetic is not even a new idea that just somehow popped up for the first time in history in Chazelle's head goo. The Artist, which won Best Picture in 2012, is a touching love story that's a wonderful tribute to the era of silent films. Hugo, which was nominated for the same award in the same year, is a beautiful tribute to the era of French silent movies, particularly those of Georges Méliès.
And now, perhaps the spiciest of takes in the history of Flowergothic. The 2011 movie The Muppets, which also has a classic Hollywood aesthetic, is a much better homage to the classic Hollywood movie musical than La La Land. Let me explain why.
1. The aesthetic doesn't distract from the substance. The Muppets has your typical golden age of Hollywood aesthetic mixed in with your expected Muppet mayhem, but this doesn't distract from the plot, which is actually interesting and has stakes. If they don't bring the Muppets back together, they will lose the iconic theater and it will become an oil rig. 2. The couples featured in the Muppets, token humans Gary and Mary, and Muppets Kermit and Miss Piggy, are actually interesting characters with their own unique conflicts. Gary tends to sacrifice his own interests and desires to enhance his brother's, the puppet Walter's, well-being. Mary doesn't hate Walter and is actually willing to help him achieve his dreams, but she wishes for more commitment from Gary and for Walter to not have to be involved with everything they do. The two have obvious chemistry and can actually sing, and their own personalities and interests make them characters I want to see get together. Kermit and Miss Piggy, the most iconic couple in the Muppets franchise, split prior to the events of the movie, but it's clear they still have feelings for each other. Miss Piggy is smitten when she sees him for the first time in years, but it's clear they went through a rocky road which led to their breakup. They're like a divorced couple in their 50s who still care about each other, but refuse to admit it, and it's heartbreaking to see them denying their own feelings for one another. 3. All of the songs move the plot along and/or introduce the holy grail of screenwriting. Y'all know it, character development. This contrasts with La La Land's constant need to play jazz instead of developing its characters.
Though, speaking of jazz...
Hey, Flower, you gonna sing?
No! Alright, y'all, it's time for some more spicy takes!
I find it demeaning that the movie's one trained musician and singer, John Legend, who also happens to be the one POC main cast member, is playing a man you're supposed to see as ruining jazz. It plays into a white savior narrative. It is only the white who can restore the purity of a traditionally POC art form. Not to mention that Sebastian's very interpretation of jazz is wrong. He fails to realize that it was a fusion of traditional African American genres, such as blues and ragtime, as well as that New Orleans is not the only genre of jazz. I was born in NOLA and I'm offended.
In fact, in the 1930s, it was not New Orleans that was considered the jazz capital, but Kansas City. This took me about 10 minutes of research to discover. 10 minutes! Of course, I don't entirely blame Sebastian for this because he's a fictional character. I lay more blame on Chazelle. Why? Well, he has tried to show himself as some kind of jazz expert who wants to show that jazz isn't some background music but can be aggressive and exciting. Bro, you are not a jazz historian. Please shut the fuck up.
Oh, and Sebastian says jazz is dying? Motherfucker, did you forget their traditional jazz revival of the 80s that was caused by a rift in the jazz fandom on whether or not smooth jazz is jazz? So John Legend, his character has a name, but I'm gonna keep calling him John Legend because he deserves better than this, is creating a jazz funk electronica fusion band. Sebastian is very pissy about it, but joins anyway due to the previously discussed miscommunication with Mia. Then, John Legend gives him these words of wisdom.
But you say you want to save jazz. How you going to save jazz if no one's listening? Jazz is dying because of people like you. You're playing to 90-year-olds at the Lighthouse. Where are the kids? Where are the young people? You're so obsessed with Kenny Clark and Thelonious Monk. These guys were revolutionaries. How are you going to be a revolutionary if you're such a traditionalist? You're holding on to the past, but jazz is about the future.
And guess what? He has a point! Innovation is needed to maintain success. Jazz evolved, as did rock, pop, all the genres. They evolved to changing tastes and interests. Sadly, Chazelle doesn't seem to think that is the case.
What I did was partly motivated by was a sense that jazz gets a bad rap, especially from young people today, as a music that's best listened to while sipping a martini or in the back of a restaurant. This is the idea that it's a very genteel music. To me, that's so the opposite of the greatest jazz. Jazz was born as rebellious dance music, cramped houses in New Orleans. Jazz was an artistic rebellion in the 40s with the bebop players. You think of the great jazz drummers, Art Blakey, Buddy Rich, Chick Webb. These guys had a bravado and energy that we don't always associate with jazz anymore. So I've wanted to showcase that side of jazz in all my movies. Like I said before, you're always wanting to balance honoring the past and bringing things up to the present. And that's a hard balance to achieve, for me or anyone.
And yes, jazz was considered the devil's music when it was first introduced into the world. But you have to keep in mind that this was part of a satanic panic where jazz wasn't just immoral, but was actually the literal devil's music, because it had non-European roots.
In an article in the Ladies' Home Journal in 1921, Anne Shaw Faulkner worked herself into a lather lamenting the introduction of the corset check room, where young ladies could shed their suspension garments so that they could quiver and wriggle freely on the floors of municipal dance halls. Her screed, titled "Does Jazz Put the Sin in Syncopation?", cites scientific research conducted in insane asylums that showed that the effect of jazz on the normal brain produces an atrophied condition on the brain cells of conception, until very frequently those under the demoralizing influence of the persistent use of syncopation, combined with inharmonic partial tones, are actually incapable of distinguishing between good and evil, between right and wrong. She concludes that jazz is the accompaniment of the voodoo dancer, stimulating the half-crazed barbarian to the vilest deeds, and that it is not music at all. It is merely an irritation of the nerves of hearing, of sensual teasing of the strings of physical passion.
You know what's funny? This satanic panic tends to only show up in African American rooted music genres, like hip-hop, rap, which is real music, mind you, and good old-fashioned rock and roll. But despite Sebastian's idea of jazz growing less and less popular, jazz itself influenced many popular genres down the line. Hard bop, for example, was a 50s jazz genre that took a lot of influence from gospel and R&B. Sebastian is white-splitting a genre that he doesn't even know enough about to make distinctions like that. Hell, now that I think of it, Sebastian's traditional jazz, the kind he comes over, is bebop. Bebop was a jazz genre that developed in the 1940s, emphasizing complex chords and a tempo too fast to dance to. Most of the musicians Sebastian mentions or listens to, Thelonious Monk, Miles Davis, did bebop at some point in their careers. If Sebastian was such a jazz snob, wouldn't he know which genre of jazz is which? Wouldn't he know that bebop was an innovation from traditional danceable jazz? You sometimes have to innovate to survive!
And what happens if you fail to innovate? Bombing big and bombing hard.
The Happy Time Murders is a good example of innovation failure. It's gross, it's stupid, and it's over-reliant on the overused trope of kids thing, but for adults. But if it were released in like 2005, I guarantee you it would have been a lot more successful. Financially, at least.
Other crude, stupid films like Norbit, Balls of Fury, and 50 First Dates, which I plan on making a video for eventually, were financial successes and exemplify 2000s cinema. I recommend none of them, as most of them are either racist, sexist, ableist, or some combination of the three. 2000 cinema was bad.
But this is John Legend's only character arc, being a jazz fusion catalyst to separate Sebastian and Mia for good because he wants to make jazz fusion music and have Sebastian play in his band even though Sebastian hates jazz fusion. And it's a shame. Start a Fire is the musical's best song. It's sung by a professional musician with a great deal of experience. It has an addictive chorus, and is the only song in the movie that I would 100% recommend to everyone. I also find it odd, to say the least, that we focus on 2 white people in Los Angeles when LA is a super diverse city. Only about 30% of the city's population is white. You have a diverse pool of people to pick from, and yet the only POC main character can be read as an antagonist depending on how you interpret him and his relationship with Sebastian and Mia's dynamic? Fuck you! I know I say this as someone whose skin is the color of Elmer's glue, but I've been to LA before and met all kinds of people, most of whom weren't even white. I've had Japanese food, Korean food, and El Salvadoran food in Los Angeles. It's not just white people. In fact, again, it's mostly not non-Hispanic white people. The opening drags you into a false sense of security by having a plethora of diverse people. This movie could have been perfect for shooting a lesser-known POC actor or singer to fame. But no! Having big names is more important than sticking to your morals. It's propaganda at its finest. I hate it! I hate it! I hate it with a flaming passion! Fucking hell!
I would have loved it if this film was just John Legend trying to find success with his jazz fusion band. But nope, we have to focus on 2 uninteresting whites instead. Fuck! We've had enough white representation in cinema. It's practically all of Hollywood for the past forever. I guess I shouldn't be surprised since Hollywood always sells to white audiences, but that's fucking racism at its finest. We need more representation for people of color in cinema. And some grifters in the comments may say that diverse representation is too political, but it's not. It's not political to acknowledge the true demographics of American society. It's not political to have a POC protagonist at all. Why do people always think that's political? And sure, America has white people, yes, but not everyone in the country is white. In fact, the white population is overrepresented. Non-Hispanic white people account for around 50% of the population. But most federal politicians are white. Most people in power are white. We are oversaturated with white representation. Not everyone in America is white, but Hollywood sure thinks so. Why? Because they are scared of trying new and exciting things. Fuck you, Hollywood. Fuck you, Ryan Gosling. Fuck you, Emma Stone. And most of all, fuck you, Damien Chazelle. You did not deserve those wins for La La Land. Fuck you!
Flower, you're right. But something's wrong.
What?
I can see it in your eyes.
What's wrong, Flower?
You can tell us. We love you.
You haven't been yourself for a while.
What do you want me to do?
Tell us what happened, Flower. My grandma was a huge inspiration of mine. She would tell me these stories about her childhood in Vermont, and I remember when she told me about her first daughter, only named Baby Jean, because she was born diagnosed with anencephaly and only lived for She spent some years mourning, then another baby coming, but Miss Baby Jean the same. Here's to you, Grandma Jean, foolish as you may seem. Your whole life you've lived the dream. Now your mind's at it seems. She smelled like pine needles, never was feeble, a stewardess for TWA. So Christmas trees in autumn and watched me blossom. I'll always remember her flame. Here's to you, Grandma Jean, foolish as you may seem. Your whole life you've lived the dream. Now your mind's at it seems. She told me you've gotta follow your dream to be the best you can be. Who knows where it will take you? You know that the world needs you. You'll never falter, my only granddaughter. I love you, you're so smart and brave. And here's to you, Grandma Jean, crazy as you may seem. Your whole life you've lived the dream. Now your mind's at it seems. I trace it all back to her before the Alzheimer's. I love you, Jean. I wish I could speak to you again. So, a lot happened in the past year. My grandma, Jean G, has had Alzheimer's for many years. I distinctly remember the time I first noticed something was wrong. It was May of 2014. My grandma was in town to see our new house and celebrate my 14th birthday. It was around the time of the 8th grade dance, my middle school graduation, you know, stuff you look forward to in early teenhood. During her stay, my grandma, who was usually 100% there mentally, started asking me the same questions and telling me the same stories over and over again, which was something she didn't do before, and I was confused. Sometime later, I read an article about dementia patients, and I came to realize what she had, and I was devastated. My grandma, she meant a lot to me then, and she means a lot to me now. To know that she was slowly going to lose her cognitive functions, it broke my heart. 2020, though, was when her condition took a turn for the worst. She would wear the same clothes every day, move things around in her house, and forget basic details about my family. She had my grandpa, though, so we coped, and I thought things would be okay for her. Then came last Christmas. My grandma stopped eating and drinking and refused to get out of bed.
My grandpa, a lovely person, he's just not the best caretaker, didn't see this as a red flag. We didn't even know about it until he mentioned it to my uncle on Christmas Day. My uncle called the paramedics. My grandma was hospitalized for severe dehydration. Bleh, gonna do that one again. My uncle called the paramedics. My grandma was hospitalized for severe dehydration, and she lived, thank God. But my mom, uncle, and grandpa realized that she needed more assistance than they were capable of, so she had to be placed in assisted living. My mom and I visited her back in March when Kansas allowed visitation again, and she was gone. She was merely a shell of her former spirited self, and it's hard. It's hard to see someone you love die before she passes away. This got me thinking about life and chasing your dreams and falling in love. And you know what I realized? I realized that you can't hang on to your past. You have to move on. I realized that sometimes you discover that your childhood dream is not your true calling, and that it's okay to chase different dreams. Those, my dears, are the antitheses of the messages of La La Land. It's okay to innovate. It's okay to change. And sometimes your dreams just don't come true. And that's okay. You can find your happiness. Don't let childhood ambitions or traditions hold you down. Fly free. I guess I need this lesson too because, well, I have an announcement to make. I, Flowergothic, Julia, am graduating college this month. 3 years, 3 schools, and 1 abusive relationship later. I am graduating a semester early from one of the best public universities in the country. And I'm not going to let young me hold me down. I'm going off on a new adventure. So, I'm going to be gone for a while, but don't worry. This channel isn't going anywhere. I can't wait for what's next, and I'll most certainly be back soon. Good night, and goodbye.